scared. Shadow figures appear everywhere. Death threat. It's a murder. Death threat. Oh! Death threat. It's a murder. Death threat.
FM would like to say thanks to the Eastern and Central Community Trust for their continued support.
Float away from my problems every night, in hand an orange big lighter and a water-filled pipe. For a moment I am blind to all the trouble in my life. Trying to deny that there is something wrong with me, a collateral damage at the top of my anatomy. Sip a little science and it carries all my shit away. Sit down and sing a sad song, feel the tears trickle down the skin of my skeleton. Oh no. I need love, I need love, I need love soon. Seems all of the laughter's vanished with a cloud of smoke. I look into the glass at a man that I used to know. Stabbed him in the back 'cause this habit has grown out of control. I heat up a scented candle and settle into a lucid dream, a dream where I am falling and falling for an eternity. I hear a single voice circling around like a bird of prey. Scream at the top of my lungs. I yearn that it was someone else's reality. Oh no. I need love, I need love.
Arrow FM would like to say thanks to COGS for their continued support.
Got a good shirt, wear it all the time. Soda chips, kiss my lips.
It's about, yeah.
4 to 5.
Good morning, Wairarapa. This is Anna Cardno from Wairarapa DHB with Wraparound Wairarapa, a show to bring services to you and network the community to all of those wonderful health services and other more community-orientated services that are out there that many of us don't know about. And today, it is my pleasure once again to welcome the beautiful Jane Ross from Whaiora.
Thank you. Good morning, Morena.
Welcome, Jane. And with us also we have Harry Ball. Welcome, Harry.
Morena.
Harry is the health improvement practitioner who's been with Whaiora now for just on 4 months. It's a new initiative, the health improvement practitioners, the HIPs in the Wairarapa, and I'm going to leave it with Jane and Harry to explain to us exactly what a health improvement practitioner does and why this is such great news, having this new initiative, a new service here in Wairarapa. Over to you, Jane. Tell us all about it.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And it's just a pleasure to be back and absolute pleasure to bring Harry along with me. It's been lovely. We are absolutely loving having Harry based at Whaiora. We've got nothing but positive and wonderful and positive things to say. So I guess I wanted to bring Harry in as the newest member of our team at Whaiora, but also the whole role is new, and in fact it's an emerging workforce in New Zealand, so I thought it was really important to introduce Harry to the community and also to spend some time getting to know Harry and that role itself, so the role of the health improvement practitioner.
Absolutely, and I think when it comes to healthcare, we're used to having so many different clinicians and people involved in healthcare, aren't we? We know we've got nurses, we've got nurse practitioners, we've got doctors, we've got all of these people, and I think it's really important that people do recognise the different roles that everyone does play. So I think the health improvement practitioner I think is something quite unique, and right now with coming out of COVID and with our mental health concerns that we all have in New Zealand, and exactly what the health improvement practitioners are going to bring to us here is really quite exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think, the very key thing that you've raised is this is in response to the rising concern around mental health in Aotearoa New Zealand in general. So this was an initiative that was brought about through the current government in response to the rising concern, and there certainly has been a lot of development and initiatives in response to COVID-19. This is something that had actually been in the development and was being trialled in particular places in New Zealand for a number of years now, but it was timely that we were able to introduce Harry at the moment that we were coming out of lockdown. There was a growing conversation around mental health, rising anxiety, and we were just thrilled that we here in the Wairarapa could respond to that with the introduction of Dr. Harry Ball at Whaiora. So I guess we're going to talk with you, Harry, about your role, I'm just thrilled and we've just so welcoming of you into the medical centre. But I guess I want to talk about your understanding and definition of the role of a health improvement practitioner. Yeah.
Well, I guess one of the key points really to the role is flexibility, in that health improvement practitioners are able to see a very wide range of people throughout the age ranges. So working right from working with parents who maybe are experiencing some difficulties with their kids, right through to older adults. We're also able to have the flexibility to see a wide range of presenting difficulties, so anything from depression, anxiety, grief, to also the difficulties that are often associated with chronic illness, what we might describe as the secondary psychosocial issues associated with difficulties such as diabetes or chronic pain. So that is one feature of the role. The second important feature of the role, I think, is the idea that we are accessible So we're accessible at a primary care level, at the level of GPs. There's no need for a referral process to a secondary service. And that had often been a barrier for people.
So they can just come directly, ring Whaiora and get an appointment to come and see you directly?
Absolutely. They don't even, Anna, they don't even have to, people don't even have to ring. They can just turn up on the day.
And I guess that's key with the flexibility. As long as you're an enrolled client at Whaiora's medical centre, you can present on the day if you're experiencing something that you know is affecting your mental health and you need to actually seek services to support that in a particular moment on a particular day. Harry's available.
Yes.
And but another way is that Harry is very much part of that general practice team, and so he's also there to provide support and training and advice to the whole team in the medical centre about
because that's something else, isn't it? Is about educating our other health practitioners about how to pick up when somebody might not necessarily vocalise what's going on for them, but they know there's something else happening in the background that they want to tease out, and they, that kind of stuff, so that they can then talk with you and get that person in front of you to try and get to the bottom of that.
I guess, Anna, we also have to remember that mental health difficulties affect all of us. We all have mental health.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And of course there's a gradient, there's a spectrum ranging from very mild difficulties, transitory difficulties, issues around stress reactions, right through to more severe mental health difficulties, dealing with severe depression or severe anxiety.
Well, I think one of the things that we struggle with here in New Zealand particularly, I don't know about the rest of the world, but certainly something I see, having been involved in the suicide prevention work that I've been doing over the years, one of the things that I see is that we're very number 8 wire kind of mentality in New Zealand, like she'll be right, I'll get over it, it'll be right, just get on with it. And so we actually leave things for a lot longer than we should till it becomes that sort of more urgent need. So a lot of the work that, as I understand it, a lot of the work that the health improvement practitioners are doing is dealing with that sort of more mild to moderate end. So that we can actually, for want of a better term, fix people before it becomes a bigger issue, and actually address these issues at that level playing field where there's no stigma attached and we don't need to be putting people in a box. It's just around helping that sort of, mental attitude right from the beginning.
Absolutely, Anna, and I have to emphasise that what I provide isn't therapy, it's not counselling, but hopefully it's therapeutic. Hopefully people are able to have a general discussion about what's on top for them. We then devise a bit of a plan going forward. So it's a quite informal process of essentially problem solving. And looking at very small steps sometimes that people can take just to improve their mental health or to improve the stress that they're dealing with. There's nothing very complex about it, but it is very useful to talk things over with another person who maybe has some experience in dealing with these issues.
And that's an important point to raise as well. A person, for example, might present at a medical centre with a leg injury. And it might be something that's been ongoing, and it might be that the pain is actually causing anxiety. It could be causing a financial difficulty with unable to actually fully do a job. That could then have the knock-on effect of affecting your sleep, your relationships. And so it becomes this big thing. And what Harry's saying is, if we can be flexible with somebody's got an appointment about a physical problem, isn't it always linked to other parts of our mental health and our wellness as a whole? So we've always talked about that at Whaiora, that there's different aspects to a person's overall wellness. And if we look at that from a holistic point of view, we can treat a physical problem. And then we have that amazing ability now to also have some time with Harry, where you can actually also talk through the complexity of that physical issue that you've actually come to see a doctor about. So it's given us another facet, another element to be able to address a person's holistic wellness.
Yeah.
Which, of course, is part of the whole philosophy of whaiora, isn't it? It's
It
that
is,
whole
yeah.
te whare tapawha. It's that thinking about, every part of a person being well. So it fits so nicely with all of that.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, and Jane, I think that's a very good example, and we know through years of research around pain and pain management. The pain can be a very subjective phenomena that different people can cope with in different ways and under different circumstances. So helping a person modify, for example, their environment or even their emotions can actually help with pain management as well.
Yeah.
So that's just one very long-standing part of the research around the mind-body connection.
Yeah. And isn't it so important to take time for all of that connection?
Of course,
Yeah.
yes, of course. We're pretty good, I think, in Western medicalised settings at purely thinking about the soma, about the physical.
Yes.
However, increasing awareness that there needs to be a more rounded approach to care.
And you're right, Anna, and thank you for acknowledging that at whaiora it always has been part of the kaupapa to look at
Yes.
the whole person and the different aspects of a person's health, to be able to know that we're all standing with strong foundations to take care of ourselves, and to that effect become self-managing. And actually recognising all the things that need a little bit of support and topping up at different times to create that balance, that harmony.
It's quite sad in a way that in our culture we have become, and by our culture I just mean in New Zealand, and again it could even be global, that we've got to a position where it takes bravery to consider our mental health as part of our overall well-being, and I think that's something that I've always struggled with, is that why do we need to be so brave to recognise that we're struggling mentally when it's very easy when you break your arm. You were talking about breaking your arm, breaking your leg, hurting yourself, injury, where we accept that we're going to hurt our bodies on occasion, and that when we do we're going to get them fixed, and yet we have to be so brave to say actually we're struggling, and it's just wrong.
Yeah, it's a very good point, Anna. Very, very important point. And I think that at times we live in a society or structure within society that divorces us from our mental well-being. I think sometimes essentially mental well-being can be very simplistic. It can be perhaps focusing on the relationships that we have and the quality of those relationships. It can be focusing on, I guess, what the cliched idea at times of work-life balance, with the emphasis really on living life and living a quality life.
Yes. Yeah.
These are the things that tend to make us happy. There's no mystery around depression and at times why people get depressed. It can be as simple as not leading a happy life. That may sound very simplistic, but we know that when people begin to retreat from their activities, retreat from society, their life can get very, very small.
And then when it is small, it's really hard to pull back and find something that lights your candle and makes you spark and you enjoy it, because you're not in the mind space to even do that, are you? So
No.
that's the tricky part.
Well, ultimately, isn't it that we all want to be living our best lives, and to be able to recognise the things that actually give us quality and provide that spark and that happiness is a really important part of reflecting on your mental health. And I think there will always come a point, because we do all have mental health, we all need to take care of our hinengaro, and it's recognising that it is just as important as physicality, just as important as having a healthy home, for example, because everything impacts on it, on our overall way that we see the world.
Absolutely.
Yes, and
absolutely.
And we live in very complex times.
We do, yeah.
Not only with the anxieties around COVID, but we're a far more connected species. We're connected via the internet, via social media.
And all the nasties that brings,
And
because
all
there's a lot of nasties
that's
that
right.
brings. Yeah.
Yes.
Of course. We have many social structures that have perhaps fallen by the wayside as well, that assisted people or helped people integrate into community. And people can be living at times very solitary individual lives, and we know that that really isn't good for people's mental health.
That's absolutely right. And one thing that we did pick up through COVID, so COVID obviously has impacted on so many lives, right?
Yes.
You know, globally, and there's a lot of negatives that go with COVID, and we're, you know, there's a lot of suffering. There's also some really, really good stuff that's come out of COVID, and I think one of probably the most important and most valuable things that's come out of COVID is it's suddenly okay now, finally, for people to start talking about wellbeing and about mental health. So we've got a whole lot of national advertising now saying, you know, where you can get help. We've got 1737 texts. We've got the health improvement practitioners that have come on board. We've got this cool stuff, and I think we need to really be very careful about maximising and amplifying that so it becomes normal, and that we don't just tag it to COVID.
Yes.
Because that's my concern, is that this pandemic's been out there, people have been sick, people are anxious, and it's okay to be anxious and do something about it. Actually, we need to say, you know what, people have been anxious and depressed and struggling with mental issues for a very, very, very long time, forever.
Yes.
Now it's okay to talk about that. Let's keep that real, and let's keep it okay. And I think, for me, bringing it back to Harry, to your role and to what you're doing, this I see as a really positive escalation of what COVID has taught us, is that mental health is as important as our physical health, and Whaiора's leading the way with, you've got the health improvement practitioner and yourself, Harry. Someone can come in with their sore leg, they can then unpick that, they can see you, and they can go away a whole person with their health needs met.
Yeah.
And on an ongoing basis. And I think that's the really key core learning that we can take from that ridiculous pandemic that is ongoing.
Absolutely. At Whaiora, we had identified as part of a sort of a long-term plan that we needed to have somebody specialised that could support the team with best practice around addressing mental health with our particular community. And so delighted that we are to have Harry. Harry's not alone in the Wairarapa. There are actually other health improvement practitioners.
Well, the expectation is they're going to roll out across all medical practices.
Yeah. So it started as a trial actually initially up in Whangarei. So, and the success of that, of having a health improvement practitioner situated in primary healthcare, this was identified as something that was really positive and working very well. And in fact, you've actually said to me, Harry, that this is quite possibly one of the best kind of working environments or ways of working that you've actually experienced.
Yes.
We're blessed, really blessed, that Harry has a background as a clinical psychologist, but in fact, Harry's only one of 2 clinical psychologists in New Zealand that is working as a health improvement practitioner. Mainly, health improvement practitioners in New Zealand have a background in nursing or must have a registered qualification in mental health and addictions. So the rollout, it is going to continue to roll out, but we have, I believe, 3 health improvement practitioners currently in the Wairarapa. One's based at Masada Medical and another in South Wairarapa. So 3 right here in the Wairarapa, and aren't we lucky to have that?
We absolutely are, and they're going to increase, aren't they?
That's right.
Yeah. The bit that you said just then, Jane, around Harry being based at Whaiora, and you said it earlier, Harry, about being involved in the location of core medical services and being in the medical practice. To me, that's probably one of the most exciting things about all of this, because it's bringing that focus on mental health and wellness and well-being into a core medical environment. Absolutely. So for me, that's got the big tick from me, because it's saying, actually, you know what, if you're struggling with anxiety or depression, or there's something that you know you need help with in your head, it is as important as if you were struggling medically in any other part of your body, and we're going to give it that same energy and emphasis, and I think that's really important. So somebody doesn't need to go to some sort of different place where they can feel the stigma and the shame and there's something, feel guilty about having to go to a different place to explain what's going on inside of their head. They can actually go to the medical centre.
Yeah, exactly. There's no need to refer out.
No.
We've got everyone we need.
So
We've
that
got the
does two
skills
things.
within.
So it stops that awful, and we do it so often within health, that horrible service to service hopping with all these referrals, but this is a one-stop shop, which is great. But then it also says it's okay to have issues in your head. It's the same as if you broke your arm.
Yes.
We'll see you just like we'd see anybody else.
Yeah,
I think
we have general practitioners, we have nurse practitioners, we have a health
And
improvement.
we have Harry. Health improvement.
Isn't that a wonderful recognition? Yeah.
It is. It's brilliant.
I think that's a very important point, Anna, from the overall history of mental health services. And certainly when I started off as a clinical psychologist, the aspiration was to have good community care and to move away from secondary services. And secondary services have been and do a very good job, but of course can become very overloaded with referrals. Staff burnout can be a problem as well. And it also can have that marginalising effect on people seeking help because of perhaps difficult experiences, or because perhaps their needs haven't been directly addressed.
Or just because of archaic perceptions about mental health itself.
Absolutely.
You don't even have to have any experience in it personally or within your whānau to know that people, there's a shame attached. There has been a shame.
Tragically, that idea is still around, of course. So bringing mental health services in from the cold and bringing them to a place that people access on a very regular basis, beginning to normalise that as part of the discussion.
Yeah.
It's so overdue, but so exciting that it's happening here and now.
I'm curious to know, Harry, how the clients are responding to having you available to them.
Yes.
How has this been welcomed by our clients for you?
Well, I can only comment about the feedback that I've received, and the feedback has been very, very positive. I have to say, from my point of view, it's been wonderful to meet so many different people and to work on such a variety of levels with people.
And ages, Harry?
And ages, of course, yes. And the role of the health improvement practitioner means that we offer quite brief sessions, so that can be around 30 minutes, really to talk about what's on top. And people are free to rebook and to talk about ongoing difficulties. And to have that ongoing dialogue, and it's really suited to what the person's needs are. What I really appreciate about the model is it is person-centred. It is focused on the client's needs, rather than the needs of the service or the needs of managing referrals. It is an entirely flexible approach.
Yeah, I can imagine that sometimes somebody might just need to talk through a particular event that's coming up in their lives, a particular occasion that they actually just need to let go of some anxiety around and actually have somebody objective
and unpick that.
to talk that through, and it's just ideal that we have that person on site that can actually respond to that. And you're right, Harry can see any of our clients any age, and it is around assisting around care pathways as well with our clients too. So I like the fact that people can rebook if it's something larger and ongoing, and that they have that ability as very much client people focused, that we're not saying you must come to 6 sessions to be able to work through what you're going through. It's entirely in the hands of the client and what they would like, and the, their time that they would like. So I love the fact that it can be a same day response.
Absolutely, I think that's brilliant.
That you're not waiting for someone to pick up a referral, and because there's so many time pressures on that for a lot of people as well. Things are time sensitive sometimes, aren't they, Harry?
Yes, they are, and as I said before, life is complex.
Yes.
It throws at us a multitude of difficulties at times. And it is very useful to have that opportunity on tap, in a sense, to come in and talk to someone about what's on top for the person.
I think that's really important, because if somebody's actually taken it upon themselves to address an issue that they've perceived that they have, or they've acknowledged that they have, and they've come in to see you, and to have that conversation for up to half an hour, and you've presumably given them tools as to how they can then apply those and keep themselves safe in the meantime, and all of that, then to be able to come back and revisit how that was going for them is really important, isn't it? I'm interested in connections, Harry, with if someone comes in to see you, for example, and you recognise, or perhaps even they do, that a lot of the issues and the concerns that they have, and a lot of their negative headspace is based on a financial issue or impact of COVID or loss of job or something along those lines, or perhaps a violent relationship, any of those sorts of things. Do you then help navigate connections with other services and things like budget advice and those sorts of things? Is that part of the brief?
It certainly is part of the brief, and at Whaiora, very lucky to have a service that encompasses a lot of skills in terms of the staff there. So there's always the opportunity for a referral to someone who knows, and someone who can deal with that particular difficulty and assist with that particular difficulty.
And I think that taps into Whaiora's core values, and one of them being whakawhanaungatanga. Our connectedness for us is really important. Ultimately, we want a thriving community. Our vision at Whaiora is always, and has always been, Wairarapa he Waiora, Wairarapa, a place of wellness. So when I first started working at Whaiora 3.5 years ago, I had a very robust conversation with our staff and with our trustees around what our ideas are around wellness and how we can actually realise that vision. And one of the things that came out of that was we introduced a brand new value, which was whakawhanaungatanga, but also tino rangatiratanga. If we want our people to be self-managing, then we need to have the connections in place that will enable that to happen.
Absolutely.
Yes,
absolutely.
We recognise Harry was an important part of that conversation and that pathway, that we needed to have a health improvement practitioner that was based with us. But we also recognise that there are other people in our community that have particular skills and particular services that are really important to support us to actually achieve that vision of wellness in the Wairarapa.
And you and I have talked about this so many times around that, breaking down the barriers between services, networking. I mean, that's what this Wraparound Wairarapa is all about, actually, is breaking down those boundaries and going, actually, we've got some really, really, really good and very, very valuable services here in the Wairarapa, and how do we make them far more accessible for people? And, you're talking about Whaiora's vision and values, and they're fabulous, and they always have been. I mean, I think, if anyone gets it right, it's the way Whaiora puts it together. And I think the Wairarapa DHB vision of Well Wairarapa is probably a broader look at exactly the same thing. And we've just been, obviously, at the DHB writing our annual plan, looking at our strategic direction, and it's absolutely all about that. If we want people to be able to be self-managing, we need to empower them and enable them to do that.
Yeah.
And for me, probably the best illustration of where we're going and how we're going to achieve that is Harry, as this position, isn't it? I mean, really, if you're going to exemplify what do we really mean by a well Wairarapa and about enabling that, it's this. It's having a health
absolutely.
improvement practitioner in medical practice.
I'd echo that point that in health there's often that very difficult dynamic of assisting the individual client, but also keeping an eye on the population-based issues, and that can be a difficult dynamic to deal with. But it's vitally important to always remember in health that at a population level, if the population is cohesive, if the population has a good sense of its own autonomy and a good ownership of health, then of course wellness as a whole is brought up. So that, I think that's a very important point around the health improvement practitioner role, that it is also population based.
Yes.
Improving the population of a specific GP
And
practice.
who we are as a community and
Who we
and
are as
how
a community.
we
Yeah.
And on that note, I hate this part. We've come to the end of our Wraparound Wairarapa show. We've had 30 minutes talking on a fabulous subject. I would love you guys to come back, because I think this is one of these really gutsy conversations and just...
Yeah, thank you. It is a courageous conversation.
Yes.
You're right. This is a brave conversation for all of us to be having, and
absolutely.
thank you for
Yes.
inviting
Thank
us
you,
in
Anna.
to do that.
I also have to mention, Anna, thank you for inviting us. That employed by Tuora Compass Health as part to join the Fiora team.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're lucky to have you. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Ngā
Thank you.
mihi nui.